So hi to the recording, hi New York. I'm so delighted tonight to introduce you to Anne Ortelee, who is a national treasure. And for many years, as many of us remember fondly, Anne held space at the Open Center on Tuesday nights, Access Astrology, and it was this really just New York City event. And it was every Tuesday night, and Anne just held an open house, and anyone who wanted to learn astrology could go and just sit and talk astrology and the week's events, different things in the news, whatever was going on. It was all fair game. And it was a really magic moment. And I think a lot of us missed that. And Anne is, studied with John Marcusella. She studied with NCGR. She's certified at NCGR level 3. But beyond that, Anne is someone with such an incredible heart. I think that's the thing. When I first started being a professional astrologer, people come to me like, well, I can't get booked with Anne right now because she's backed up. So could we do a reading? And I'd be like, okay. And they'd be like, okay. And then we sit in the reading. They'd be like, well, Anne said this really amazing thing to me about my chart. And she said it to me 10 years ago and it changed my life. And then 5 years ago, we did a reading and she changed my life again. And this didn't just happen once. It happened like about 18 times, So it's also not just about the skill of astrology, but the way of being emotionally present. And so you are really a master of your art, and we're just so happy to have you here. It's
all sorts of wonderful people every day. It's all good. But also I have a Mercury Mars square, so it goes in. People go, oh. No.
I'm getting everything set up here. Yeah. Like, for the people, it's just.
Pregnant silence.
Sounds.
Yeah. There's our new mayor. Today, I'm Anne Ortelee. I'm an astrologer in New York, and I go to Florida in the winter, so I'm back and forth. We're going to talk, and it was Danny's idea. Mercury retrograde to switch us into Zohran's chart because he got elected. And of course, I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. Let's definitely do Zohran's chart. So we're going to look at his chart, and we're going to look at it from a few perspectives because we know charts tell us the story, and he's not here to have the reading with us. But we're going to talk a little bit about him and what his chart is and why he stimulates such a relationship and a reaction to stuff. And it went away. So
just bear with me just one
I feel like
second.
he would have showed up if we
I know. Did anyone invite him?
Invited. So he's welcome to, somebody wants to mail him the recording, we can. So
We should. He should show up at the next meeting.
and again, I present this as a New Yorker since 1976. Some of you weren't born yet. Because I've lived in New York since 1976. So that's the other piece to think about is like, having seen a number of mayors. I had friends in Texas from college reacting to him. And I'm like, hey, we love our mayor and then we elect him and then we hate him. It's just New Yorkers.
Yeah.
And then if we don't like him, we'll unelect him in 4 years. But in the meantime, why are you getting crazy in Texas? And then it was all these people kind of getting crazy about him. So that's the other thing we'll kind of look at is why people get so excited about the guy, for good or for bad. And I don't know him. I never met him. I just look at his chart, did a little background on his research, little research on his background. It's very Mercury retrograde day today. And so when we're looking at him and saying, okay, what did he say he was going to do? And then the reality of being in, trying to manage New York, one of the biggest, most unmanageable cities in the world. So we'll kind of get a different feel for now. So are we good? Good roll?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great.
All right, so we're gonna,
Come on.
there we go. So we elected Zohran as the next mayor of New York, a democratic socialist. He stirred fervor, excitement, conversations, and controversy across America and around the world. Come spend the evening exploring his chart and how it relates to his platform, as well as the charts of New York City. And we're going to look at the US Declaration of Independence, because that chart is having huge transits right now. Constitution gets them in a while. And we all know we recently went through our Pluto return as a country. And we are having Pluto now on our progressed Pluto in Aquarius. So we're still having our Pluto return. And we remember 250 years ago, we had the American Revolution, the French Revolution. Before that, we had the Protestant Reformation. That's the power that goes west. So it's going to China next, because we're giving up our position in the world. And Saturn and Neptune, when it met back in 88, 89, those of you who have the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Capricorn, that was when the Berlin Wall fell and Europe reunited and the USSR broke up. So it's very possible as a country we may break up because we've been united
Oh my
and
god.
we may shift. Blue states, red states, Texas. Not
I've
saying
been saying that for a while.
been saying it for a while.
Did you see that meme? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did you see that meme? I can't believe that Zoran just got elected president of the United States.
No.
Sorry, go on.
Okay, so next. All right, so when we're looking at his platform, and if you go to his website, he has a lot of things on it. So his platform included these areas: housing, safety, affordability, early childhood education. Danny, you've got 2 screens rolling there.
Yes,
Pay for our agenda, how we're gonna pay for it, what the tax base is.
Hold on, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Nope, okay. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, two-part, climate, LGBTQIA protections, healthcare, labor, small business, libraries, and Trump-proofing New York City. Okay, perfect. That's his campaign, and under each of those bullets, he has a lot of stuff listed that he wants to do and explaining how he's gonna do it. So this was his campaign, pretty well developed, and that was when he was pitching.
Come on.
Okay, next. Ding. All right. So one of the things we got into a lot of was democratic socialists. Now, I'm a progressive Democrat, but I'm conservative fiscally. So I was raised by Republican cloth coat Republican parents. Everybody in my family is Republican, except my brother, who's gay, and it's very Republican family, but it's conservative values, upstate New York, right? And I would go down to my sister's house in Ponte Vedra, Jacksonville, very red, very Trump area, but also very red people. And they would have a Christmas party, and I would read on, Rush Limbaugh and Fox News and a bunch of different things to get ready. And I'd go down, and they'd all be drunk, and I'd be sitting there. And one time I was sitting there arguing with 8 people. And they were all going down, and this woman goes, "You're making my brain hurt." I'm like, "That's good. Glad I'm making your brain hurt." And so I would explain to them, socialist is a continuum.
Yes.
It's not like here or there, it's a process. And when the community gets together and says, hey, this should be something the community does, police department, fire department, courts, roads. You go to Africa, you can't go to school unless you pay. Girls stop getting educated in 8th grade. You don't have the money, you don't get the education. We have free schools. All of the things that we've said as a culture, we should have. Obviously, we don't have free healthcare. There's other things we don't have, what other countries further developed, like the Netherlands and Sweden and Denmark, they have that kind of thing where they go, okay. And again, it depends on your range. It doesn't have to be one or the other, it's a range of services. a range of things that the country says we should do. So if we're looking at the process of it, the word socialism entered the world English in 1830, right? It's been around. And the premise of it was capitalism would collapse and then go to socialism and then go to communism. But we know nothing ever works the way we think it is. It all does its own thing. So now we're going to look at whether we're going to retain a capitalist society and then maybe expand some of the socialist programs that support the people, or are we going to go, nope, we're going to be completely capitalist, or no, we're going to be completely whatever. And again, this is a process that we're having fights about right now. And we also know with the Pluto return, you know, it took out the king and the monarchies the last time. It took out the Catholic Church, the Protestant Reformation. This time it's going to be the capitalists and the corporations. Because right now, corporations are bigger than countries in many cases. So we're going to watch this evolve. And as astrologers, our job is to go, wow, Pluto and Capricorn build up the structures. That's since '08. Pluto in Aquarius, we know it distributes the structures. Because when you think of the growing season, Capricorn in your own chart is when you figure out what you amounted to. And then when you get to the Aquarius part, you disseminate it to the community. You share what you brought. You go help your neighbor raise the barn. You help with quilt. You take care of other people's children. And then we get to Pisces, which is 20 years from now, I'll be dead. You guys will be here, but we'll go into the Piscean age. So now we've got 20 years of Aquarius. We also have planets changing signs. Neptune is in Aries for the next 14 years. The last time it was in Aries in the 1860s. That was a civil war when we decided free or slave. And also there was a war in Crimea, interestingly, part of Ukraine. None of us will live through that either. And then the last time Uranus was in Gemini was 1941, June of 41. What was that? World War II. Time before that, Civil War. Time before that, American Revolution. So we know Uranus, Gemini, break apart brothers, break apart people. What you want to do, and do this for your clients too, is none of us alive, unless you're a vampire, or you're over 84, you might have lived through Uranus and Gemini. Make a list of Uranus words, make a list of Gemini words. Watch those words come to life. So back when Uranus was in Pisces, I have a Pisces moon, I really wanted to know what it was going to do. Pisces rules feet. We had Uggs and Crocs, right? Unusual, weird, and I never got into Uggs, but I had a few pairs of Crocs, including the little operations to decorate them. Remember all those little charms? That's a totally Virgo thing. You would put in the holes of the shoe, right? So make a list of Gemini words and Uranus words, like a little pile, and then pick and choose, like a Chinese menu. Make a list of Neptune words and Aries words and pick and choose, because you're going to see those things come up. Make a list of Pluto words. Make a list of Aquarius words. You're going to see them happen. So just last week, went back into Taurus. Uranus rules airplanes. Taurus rules ground. What happened? All the airplanes got grounded, right? Very literal. Astrology is very, very literal. So we don't take it personally. We just look at it and go, oh, this is what's going on. Cool. And then I navigate through this by knowing Uranus in a new sign in air, Saturn and Neptune in a new cycle, a new 38-year cycle in fire, Pluto in a new 20-year cycle in air. So we've got this energy that we're working with. That are the other stuff, Saturn we last had in Aries in 97. What happened then? There was an economic collapse. Yes, there's going to be another one. Jupiter every 12 years. We also had the nodes of fate reset January 10th this year. We saw the fires in California and we went, oh, California is going to start the fire and it's going to come across to us, because that's what happens. Kamala went to NATO and Donald got his 34 convictions. But we also started a new 19-year cycle. Think back to what you were doing in 2006. Think back to what you were doing in 87. Think back to what you were doing in 68. Because each of those years, your soul started a new cycle. And because all these planets are talking at zero, you have a lot of planets at zero, your patients do, they're getting woken up with all this fire and air. We're leaving 20 years of earth and water. And we're going into fire and air. Right now, we're in a redo, so everybody's back in earth and water, mucking it all up. So we don't have a vision. But we know the vision's coming February 20th when Saturn and Neptune get married. And we know that when Uranus goes back into Gemini, the end of April, we're gonna have new ideas. Now, when Uranus went into Gemini on the 7th of July, that was when Trump wrote the big bad bill, signed it. But that's also when those kids got carried away in the flood, those kids in Texas. So we know it's a big deal, but our job as astrologers and as people working with charts is to look at them and go, okay, this is the collective's energy. Why is it focusing in this one place? And one of the reasons we picked Zohran was he's like a little magnet for it. So without further ado, into his chart next. Okay, so here's his chart. He was born in Kampala, Uganda on October 18th, 1991. It's considered a good chart. Good rating. 1:15 a.m. Now, because he's lived here since he was a little kid, we're going to look at the New York chart. Well, we always go back to natal and we see what the natal potential is. What's the natal potential of his chart and what's it here for? What's it here to do? So one of the things, back to those world points we were talking about, first up, you see there his Jupiter is at 7 Virgo. His Venus is at 8.5 Virgo. The midpoint, the point of 7.5 Virgo is a point of fame. So his Jupiter Venus is on a point of fame. Okay, right there. We see that there in the second house of values. Virgo are the servants. Pisces are the slaves. Virgo are the immigrants that come here to work and to be of service. They're a lot of times they were indentured servants. My family came in the potato famine. So we see that 7.5 of the the Venus Jupiter midpoint on a point of fame, which automatically says this guy's going to be pretty known in the world. We look at his chart and we go, gee, he's got an Aquarius moon. What Aquarius moon is the public. The moon is in the 7th house of the public. He is a Leo rising. So he is a king coming in. Leo risings are really friggin' lucky if you know any of them. And he's a king. We go to the sun in the 3rd house. What does he have? Communication ability. His sun is in Libra. His sun answers to the Venus on a world point. So he is able to communicate in a way, in a practical, detailed way. Look at his platform. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And it answers to that. It's ruled by that Venus in Virgo. His Venus in Virgo, and this is where rulerships are important. This is to your question earlier about the sun. His Venus reports into his Mercury. His Mercury is in Scorpio. So he's really fast and analytical. And all those planets in the 3rd house is a stellium. Any more than 3 is called a star cluster. His Mercury in Scorpio reports into his Mars in 0 Scorpio. It's rulership. And Mars reports into Mars. So his sun goes to Venus, to Mercury, to Mars. The guy's fast and he's sharp. And Mars in Aries is a little choppy. So when he opened his speech, his acceptance speech, because I was curious to hear it, he opened with, I know you're watching me, Donald Trump. I have 4 words for you. How many planets in his 3rd house? 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn the volume up. And I'm like, holy shit.
Wow.
And I'm like, all right, well, that matches his chart, right? You know, I know you're listening to me, Donnie. His sun squares Trump's Saturn. So I didn't do Trump because I didn't have enough time. But the Mercury, Mars, Athena's there. Those of you who don't use asteroids are very helpful. Athena's on 3, conjunct the Mercury. Super, super smart guy. Very smart. Athena is strategy. She sprung from her father's head. She rules Athens, the city in Rome with the 7 hills. She's the warrior. So he's got a warrior energy in that 3rd house. And of course, that's his early childhood when he grew up. 3rd house is your age 0 to 14. So in the midst of his early childhood, because he moved here, I believe, when he was 7, we hear 7. What do we hear? His Jupiter is at 7. He moved to another country, right? So Jupiter on a world point. And he moved to the United States, but there's an energy there where we're speaking back to the Chiron in Leo. He wants to be the king, And where am I not the king, or where can I be the king? Because Chiron in the first is I'm the king, and it's 8, so it talks to the planets at 8, his Venus. It talks to his Uranus over there. It's a quincunx to the Uranus. It talks to somebody else. Oh, his midheaven, right? And so we've got this guy who's Chiron in Leo. I think I'm the king, and he looks like a king. When you look at him, he's got a very regal bearing,
Yeah.
right? So we look at the chart. Now we notice he's got a lot what are called clumps of planets. They're also called stelliums. Any more than 3 together, those planets hang out and have a party. So he's got 3 planets, Vesta, which is the home and hearth. Vesta is the home. What is his big thing that he's pitching on? Affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
And in the second house, it's of enormous value to him. And when we move him to the United States, obviously the chart's going to flip because he's born -3 hours. We're +5. So we're going to shift his chart 8 hours and get him a whole different chart. But we're going to watch where that Vesta goes, because right now, Vesta is out of bounds in Sagittarius. When a planet is out of bounds, it's a big friggin' deal, because she's up in the heavens going, housing, housing, housing.
Mhm.
Well, how am I going to pay for Vesta is my body, right? Because it's a health energy too. It can sometimes be your car. My sister drove for a living, so she had a really tricked out car, including radar detectors, because she was a speeder. So Vesta is the home and hearth. Then down at the bottom, we see the Ceres in Scorpio, then the Pluto in Scorpio. He grew up in an intense home with Pluto in Scorpio, because that Pluto, any planets in the 4th are important. But we look at the 12th house, which is his past life, his 4th house, which is the inheritance he got from his family or his church or his religion or his origin story. And we see the Pluto series there. And then the 8th house is the psychological issues you get from your family or your church or your religion. So what are you psychology affected by your family? So he has a past life story with Sun in Cancer on the South Node coming in. A lot of Vedic astrologers say the Aries Libra and the Cancer Capricorn, you were the opposite sex in the previous lifetime. So that would make him be he would have been an Aquarian girl, moon in Aquarius, because the moon is also the Vedic astrologers say the moon was your sun in the previous lifetime. So you come in knowing how to do that Aquarian moon. What do Aquarius rule? Groups, connections, society, small communities connecting. And so he's got that Aquarius moon, and he's learning how to be a Libra in this lifetime. He's learning how to communicate. When we go look at the Aquarius moon, because that's his other light, that's his mother, and his relations to the public, we see moon is in Aquarius, so we're going to look at traditional ruler, Saturn. You see the Saturn right there at 0 Aquarius. Where's Pluto right now?
0 Aquarius.
Pluto on his Saturn. I was at lunch the other day with Carol and a couple of other people, and Ala said, Pluto on his Saturn. I mean, that's a horrible transit. I said, do you think he's been having fun with this?
He looks like he's
But he does look like he's having fun. What's his Mars in?
Scorpio.
What does Mars do to his Saturn?
Square.
Right? So you push on me and I right back, right? I'm going to punch him in a nice way. Donald Trump, turn the volume up. I'm like,
Nice.
but also turn the volume up. Come fight with me, baby. Come fight with me, right? So that's the moon in Aquarius on Pluto on his Aquarius. But if we go Saturn, okay, let's go look at Uranus instead. And remember, Saturn is in its rulership. When it's in Aquarius, it's happy. Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius, so it's on the beginning of the Aquarius, the beginning of the breakdown. I see how things are breaking apart. And then we see Uranus in Taurus, which is the other ruler of Saturn. And what's Uranus on? His north node of fate. I am a catalyst. Uranus is catalyst. I'm an interrupter. I'm a disruptor. It makes me happy to disrupt things. I like to break things apart, to put them back together, perhaps, but also my Uranus answers to Saturn. So my Uranus answers to its own ruler. So he's got a mutual reception, probably not called a mutual, it would be a mutual reception, yeah. Mutual reception between Saturn and Uranus, but more importantly, the two of them really get each other. Now he's stealth, Neptune's on his north node. When you have Neptune in Scorpio or Capricorn rather, it's, you know, Neptune is your shield of invisibility, but it's also what you believe in. And so a lot of us are having, you know, I always believed in this because Neptune's in Pisces, finishing up 165-year cycle, is that right? Or 163, finishing up a cycle that Neptune's been in Pisces for the last 14 years. Bitcoin, last time we had it was the gold rush. Get out of Bitcoin, it's going to crash. And the minute Donald says he's accepting currency in Bitcoin, just plan on the economy going south. Make sure you have your cash dash because the banks are going under. So the net, I hope not. So the Neptune in Capricorn is answering to the Saturn in Aquarius. Again, the Neptune's on that north node, so he's stealth. You don't necessarily see it, which is good. Neptune is your cloak of invisibility. Neptune is where you find God in your chart. So he finds Neptune and God in Capricorn. What's Capricorn rule? New York City. We're a Capricorn city. Our birthday is January. Our consolidation of the 5 boroughs is January 1st, 1898. Thank you, Margaret. At midnight, 12:01. And the nodes of fate, the sun for New York City is 10 Capricorn. So he is here to disrupt New York City in the 6th house for the working people. What is the 6th house? That's the employees. So we see the natal potential in his natal chart and we go, wow, you're a disruptor. And he's like, yeah. And you go, okay, so what are you going to do? Saturn opposite is ascendant. I'm going to smile a lot. Guys gotta really smile. No, I'm going to smile a lot, but I'm going to introduce you to Saturn. Now, those of you who have strong Saturn placements, angular, he has Saturn in the 7th house. Angular placements, houses 1, 4, 7, and 10. Angular placements are really important. So he's got Saturn there, and he's like, yeah, bring it on. Again, Saturn's very strong. It's in its own sign, and it's placed in the 7th house, which is the house of its exaltation. Saturn's exalted in Libra. So he's got a Saturn that's super, super strong. Now, his father, as I understand it, is a professor at Columbia and is viewed as a bit of a disruptor himself.
Speaking of disruptions,
That was time. Yes, that's true.
all of the donations tonight are going to Anne. So please be generous. We'd love to have Anne back again.
I'll come back to that, even if you only put in $1. Money's short, money's short. So, yeah. We paid the rent already.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we're looking at that energy of his chart. Now we look at the midheaven, which is where he's going, his purpose in the world, what his direction is, right? And that's answering to Venus. Again, his midheaven reports to a Venus that's on a world point. And Venus and Jupiter and Vesta all trine his midheaven, right? And so there's a communication there between his Venus on the midheaven talking to his Venus on a world point, his Jupiter Venus, even his Vesta Venus. So those are all really good. And he's born on Friday. Who rules Venus? It's day. What Friday is ruled by Venus. So he has a very strong Venus. In addition, it's in its favorite house. Now it's in Virgo, right? So he announced, Vesta, actually his wife announced, because this is her values. She said, I don't really want to move into Gracie Mansion. I want to stay in my apartment in Queens. And I was talking to somebody last night. She's like, well, he's not going to be able to stay in the apartment. There's security, there's this, there's that, the other. And I say, you know, all the mayors that have been successful haven't lived in Gracie Mansion. Mike Bloomberg didn't move in there. Ed Koch didn't move in there. And this guy, his wife doesn't want to move in there. So I'm like, yeah, don't move into Gracie Mansion. I think it's got bad feng shui. Use it for positive thing. And she was like, well, Mayor Bloomberg has a whole brownstone. I said he had a cop in front of his house all day, every day. You know, and when he went out, they followed him. Well, it's not like an apartment building. I'm like, that's true. It's not an apartment building. But he's got this. I want to live where I live. I like my neighborhood. And he does. You know, he picks a neighborhood he likes with all that stuff in the 3rd house, because the 3rd house is the local neighborhood. So when we're looking at his chart, we see this lovely connection, and then we see the stelliums. The Jupiter, the Venus, and the Vesta work together. The Sun, the Mars, the Mercury, Athena work together. Pluto and Ceres, they're a duet. They work together. the Uranus, Neptune, the Uranus, North Node, Neptune, and Juno, his partnership planet over there at 20, Capricorn, they all work together. And then Moon is alone, but Moon in Aquarius likes to be alone. And Saturn is kind of, I wouldn't give it to the stellium and Cap, but it's a very strong Saturn. So all his planets partner with other people, which gives them extra strength, right? Because they have their partnerships that are important to them, that they go, I'm playing with this group of people and they're going to help me get stuff done. I'm playing with this group of planets. They come like a little posse. So he has a posse of Virgo, a posse of Scorpio, a posse of Capricorn. He's an earth and water guy. He wants to create physical reality. Fire and air people are the visionary, the communicators. He's an earth and water guy. He did get elected while the planets are in earth and water. He came from 1% when they were in earth and water, and he got elected. Now he's going into fire and air, where we're going to be living for the next 20 years. So this is a big shift for him in terms of direction. Thank you. Okay. Off we go. Next slide when we get a chance. Where it'd be good if I was independent again. All right, so what we do, I like to look at the Arabic parts. So the Arabic parts are always fun. These are the ones that Angelina what was her name? Angelina Adams. She said, don't get on the boat. Shipwrecks, got horrible stars, and he didn't get on the boat. All his friends did, and they all drowned on the Titanic.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, so I love Arabic parts. They're very fun. You gotta watch them a little carefully. I had one client, she wanted to live wanted to get married. He was married before they were getting married. It was her first marriage. I want to be married till death do us part. I said, nah, she knows enough astrology. So I want death do us part. I'm like, you really don't want to put that in the chart. So like, yeah, I do. So they get married on a mountain in Sedona, and he almost falls off the hill on the way down. So what's that death do us part thing, So these are his Arabic parts in his birthplace. So he's got the moon aspecting inheritance and profession. So he's a communicator. His profession is communicating, and he inherited. What does his mother do? She's a filmmaker, right? She tells stories for a living. That's what filmmakers do. So he inherited from his mother the profession of communication and texting. From his father, he's got the sun opposite the father. So there's a little competition there with dad, because the sun opposite the father, but also authority figures. You try and tell me you want me to do something, I'm going to think about it. Sun opposite father, I have a little bit of a separation from you if you're trying to boss me around. I'm a rich guy, I want to meet with you. I don't really think I need to meet with you. That whole thing with Trump. But also sun opposite the father, taking on the authority figures in a very Libran way. Smile, smile. Hi. There's a seat up here. There's one over there too. Okay, cool. Welcome, Donald. Okay, then we have Venus on the part of bondage and friends. He's going to keep his friends for a long time. He's going to keep his people for a long time. And his administrative, I haven't checked them out yet, but I was talking to someone who said, you should really check them out. He's got women as his transition team, all women. If he got a little flack from that, I'm like, remember when Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they asked how many women on the Supreme Court, she said 9, and the guy said 9. He goes, we don't have a problem with 9 men. This guy likes women with that Venus Jupiter, and they like him. So he relates well. Mars opposite sickness. I would be curious if when he was a kid, if he had a lot of ear aches or a lot of illness. Again, I don't know that, but he also wants to fight against sickness. We're probably going to have another pandemic. Right. Because Trump 1 had a pandemic. Trump 2 is on steroids. And the Saturn Neptune's on a world point. Going to be coughing and bloody and fluidy. So when that happens, he gets to take action against sickness. Right. So just saying, get your immune system built up. We don't have any vaccinations. We've destroyed our healthcare system. Watch the WHO because we're not involved anymore, but you can watch it. But we watch that Mars opposite the sickness. Jupiter, remember his Jupiter on the group, bondage and friends. Same as the Venus. I'm bound to my friends. Uranus on the part of the mother, an unusual relationship with the mother. Neptune on the part of danger or peril. Again, we're looking at this and going, okay, and where are we getting it from? Water journeys. What's Neptune in right now? Water. He has Neptune in Capricorn, which is poison water, right? So we're going to watch fluids for this new pandemic, whatever it is. But we're also going to be aware of, when he was growing up, there could have been, bad water when he was around as a kid, or he could have had some cholera or dysentery or some kind of bad, because Capricorn in water is dark water, bad water, water that's maybe a little infected. Then he has Ceres on the part of good, opposite the part of good. And remember, the oppositions kind of speak to there's a relationship, doesn't mean it fights it. And then he's got the South Node on the part of danger or peril. So he's here to be a change agent, and these are some really interesting Arabic parts. Next, and over on the right, those are his mutual receptions. He also has fixed stars that are good. The ones I particularly like is the Sun on Arcturus, the Sun on Spica. Spica is the partnership, relationship. He also has Vesta on Regulus. What was making him really crazy in New York was everybody going, affordable housing? Really? You're going to do that? And then who really hated him? The affordable housing kings, right? The real estate people really were going crazy. He also has planets. These fixed stars are very strong in terms of, and I encourage you to look them up. We're not going to spend a lot of time on them, but they're decent fixed stars, particularly Vesta on Regulus, because that was it, affordable housing. When I moved to New York in '76, an apartment was $400 a month.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. And at that point, I could make $10,000. You're supposed to pay, this is what I made as a salary. You're supposed to pay a quarter of your rent, 28%. Now apartments at 6,000, you got to have, that's a quarter of your rent times 12. You're looking at a lot of money for a starter. And even if you're sharing with a bunch of people, it's pricey. So that Regulus, that king of housing is what he's going to be called. Why for that name? He's the king of housing. And remember, it's on those fixed stars that are going to make, or those planets that are on the world plane. Next is asteroids. So we see the Venus on Sappho. That's the helping the gay people. We see Sun on Estrella. That's a healing energy. We see Mercury on Pallas. We know how close those two are. So that's his strategic thinking. Saturn on Arachne. We're going to watch it happen. He's going to set up little spider webs for people to fall in or catch themselves in. He also has Chiron paralleling Cupido. Now, Cupido, I like because it's your tribe, your family, your group. It is a trans-Neptunian planet, but it's your tribe. So his Chiron sitting in Leo on Cupido is who is my tribe, who is my family. His chart wants a family and a tribe. He also has Chiron on Cassandra, which is an interesting placement because Cassandra, of course, was the Trojan War prophetess. And she went, I don't think that's a good idea. You've been fighting with these people for 10 years. What do you mean you're taking a horse in? Really? That's not a good. And then, of course, the soldiers crawled out of the horse and the city fell. So he's got Chiron on Cassandra, which is he's going to kill everything. He's going to kill us. He's going to kill it. And that's the prophecies around him. Now, we know Cassandra was eventually she went and she got punished because she got the gift of prophecy and then she didn't want to sleep with the guy who gave it to her. So he said, nobody will believe you. And that was a hard thing, the city fell. But then she went and sat by the fountain and you would come over and she'd tell you the story of what was going to happen. So we see that Chiron is complicated in terms of its energy. Next. Thanks, sorry, James. Okay, so now we move him to New York. And basically, he now turns into a Jupiter because he's born on Jupiter's day in New York. It's the time zone change, right? So we look at where his Jupiter is. Oh my God, that damn Jupiter is in the 5th house. And it's on that world point again, right? So we know when he comes to New York, he's going to be famous for his Jupiter Venus. And we see the nodes of fate angular, right? Whenever you move to your nodes of fate, they're on 4 and 10. Midheaven's 14, the node is 13. Right up there on the tippy top, that little north node. Like I moved to my nodes of fate. A lot of times when you relocate, you're going to relocate to one of your planets. Like I live on my moon line here. And where I'm living in Florida is also on my moon line. So I came here in 1964 to the World's Fair and I went, wow, look at all the tall buildings. Capricorn. My north node is 7 Cap. I like tall buildings. There's only 3 in New York, in Rochester, and I know their names. I'm gonna move to New York until I know the name of every building, or they get sold and get new names, so I never have to leave. But he's got that North Node Capricorn on his angles in New York. He's also an Aries rising here. Now what do? We, as an Aries rising, we go over and look at that really strong Mars that we talked about before in the 7th house. Now, Mars in the 7th house does get weakened because it's in Libra's house, but he has a friggin' strong Mars. So it's going to be hard, but it also is, that's the 7th house is the house of open enemies. So that's where we're seeing all the protests and the people getting crazy. Not in New York, well, there are a lot of crazy ones in New York too, but all over the country, because we're looking at that Mars, Mercury, Athena, Pluto series. Oh my God, oh my God. And you gotta, and he's an Aries rising here. So his chart's kind of like, I hear you, but the problem, what I'm a little worried about, he has no planets in the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd houses, which protect you. Now he does have Uranus going into the 2nd, right? Uranus is like Taurus going into the 2nd by transit. So that's going to give him some protection. But I've also, when you have all the planets in the West, which is what happens to him when he moves here, they go west instead of just that little moon Saturn over there. What it does is it amplifies that energy, which is him going and talking to people and saying, this is what I'm going to do. And then you see the sun, again, answers to the Venus in Virgo, answers to the Mars, answers to the Mercury, you know, that whole thing we did before. But now the sun's in the 6th house. So people go, how are you going to do that? Because now the sun's in a critical house rather than in the communication house that he natally has. So we see where his chart gets challenged a bit. And, you know, people said to me, I said, well, stuff is run by the state. What's Kathy Hochul going to do? Now, she just found out Elise Stefanik's running against her for governor. Hochul's up for election. She's like, I want to give a tax cut to the people in the yard. I don't really want to raise the tax. So he's got to figure out how to work all that. And he does have Juno and Athena up there, or Juno and Saturn in the 10th. So he is going to get some support. But it answers to that Saturn. The midheaven now answers to Saturn instead of Venus. Saturn is exalted by placement in the 10th house. Again, it makes him strong. And Saturn's still in its rulership and it's in its own house. It's not exalted, it's in its natural house. So it gets benefits from it. But we also see that the chart's very active. Now, one of his now let's look at his campaign things. We already got the housing, that's the best stuff. We got the moon in Aquarius in the 11th house. That's children. That's the pre-K, that's the childcare. That's the he's got Sappho involved in the asteroids, that's the gays and lesbians. And of course, Aquarius traditionally, not so much anymore, was thought to rule gays and lesbians because it was unusual or it was deviant or it was a change from the norm. Now we have a little wider spectrum of what normal behavior is, or, well, maybe not in the case of the Republicans, we just crash Grindr when we have a convention, but there's a wider range of, sorry. They do, they had the Charlie Kirk's funeral and Grindr went down in Arizona. I mean, kind of good. So anyway, we have a wider range of expression, right? And so we see the chart as Western, we see the emphasis on children and people. Now, there's also a trick with stuff. The sun's in the 6th house, which is the working people. And we count around to see the 12th house. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we see the Venus Jupiter in the 12th house on a world point of how he wants to help the people. He really does want to help the people, but it answers to the Mercury, because Virgo rules his 6th house, which answers to the Mercury Athena. So he's got some tricks up his sleeve, which we will hear about as he gets sworn in and he unfolds. So when people go, how's he going to do that? I'm like, I don't know, but with this guy's chart, look at that Mercury, Athena, Mars. He's very strategic. And he's also a storyteller. And I'm a fan of Nancy Pelosi, who just stepped down, is not running for re-election. And she always said, when the people rise up, the government can do anything. So that's what, and I always hear her saying that and going, that is true. When we rise up and go, then the government sits. Now, sometimes when the planes get grounded, and the rich people's private planes can't fly, then we suddenly open the airports again. Okay, they need their private planes to fly, they're grounded, so suddenly the airports are open. We're good with whatever the group is that squeaks. So this is his chart. Now we're gonna take a second and we're gonna look at his Arabic parts in New York, because they're gonna change. The next slide, please. So, or sorry, his fixed chart. So here, when we look at his fixed chart in New York, we still see that Vesta on Regulus and the midheaven on Vega, which is an action-oriented star for getting things accomplished. So he's got a nice fixed star because we now invoke the midheaven, his direction in life next. And then his Arabic parts drop a lot. So we still have the notes on the part of catastrophe. You know, when Cuomo's study was going to run, I'm like, oh, fuck, Trump too is definitely going to be Andrew and Donald again, you know, when he did all the COVID stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, Zoran's got planets on the part of, he could be the mayor through the part of catastrophe, that'll work. We see Athena aspecting his passions. Remember Athena, how strong she is. We see Chiron aspecting death and working with people. He's not going to lie about how many people die in the nursing homes. But and he also was really going after Cuomo for that. He's got Mercury opposite the part of passion, and he also has the sun aspecting understanding. So we're seeing the Arabic parts compress a bit, but also speak more to what he's saying he wants to do. And now Juno is partnering with the father, where before it was fighting with the father. So we're gonna watch who he allies with. So we're gonna look at that energy too. Next. So he also has what not mainly stelliums, but he has a hammer of Thor. This is his hammer and Thor for New York, relocated here. It involves his Vesta on a world, you know, on out of bounds right now. When he got elected, it was that Vesta was out of bounds, or just went out of bounds. But it's to Eris, and it also goes to the North Node and Neptune. Those of you who don't know what a hammer of Thor is I'm going to swing this hammer. And the business end is Vesta complaining about him, or Eris complaining about him, and then Neptune North Node. Like, go ahead, complain about me. I'm cool with it because I'm going to be swinging that sword of the hearth, the home, the hearth, and what the home is. And that's the key to his stuff. I don't know how much the state regulates that. You know, we do have housing laws and housing codes, DHCR, a bunch of things. So it'll be very interesting to see. And back to the 1940s was when they passed the rent stabilization laws, when the people returned from World War II and they would want to get married and have babies, they'd move in an apartment, and the landlord would say, kick out, I'm going to kick you out, I'm going to raise the rent. And then they'd move to it and they kind of kick you out, going to raise the rent. So rent stabilization said, you get a guaranteed right of renewal and you get an increase of this much, which gets set every year in July when they all talk about the rent, the raising of the rent. So rent stabilization came in on Uranus and Gemini. You can't kick me out of the house just because you got somebody that's going to pay more. So now we're going to watch that as Uranus goes into Vesta. We're going to watch how that works. Next. He also has something called a Rosetta. He's got two of them. And these are the only configurations he has besides his stelliums and his T-square. And T-squares just get stuff done. But this Rosettas are the good news and the bad news. So the good news is, the bad news is. So think of a rose bush, it has thorns, it has a pretty flower. Think of a thorn bush, you go, but it has, you know, roses, they're really beautiful, but they have thorns, be careful. So he's able to see with the Rosettas, he's able to see a bit around the corners. And the one he has here is on that south node in the fourth. Like he understands what he's working on. And then it trines the Pluto in Scorpio. Again, I've got people supporting me. And then we go to the moon in Aquarius, the square from the moon to the power. What are we having? We're having a Pluto return. He's got Saturn, he's got transiting Pluto on his Saturn. He's willing to lead the revolution of the moon square Pluto and say, I think we should change the power dynamics and the power structures. Then he's got Eris behind the scenes, which is a sextile from the moon. He's willing to be mean. And we will probably see him on occasion say some things that we go, wow, because he's got Eris, the goddess of discord. If you remember her role, she was part of the Trojan War story back with the Cassandra. She wasn't invited to the party. The wedding was a forced wedding because if the woman married somebody else, then they would die or whatever. So everybody's having this wedding and it was supporting the patriarchy. So he shows up Aries shows up with his apple and says, for the most beautiful, doesn't give it to the bride. Isn't that her day? Gives it to the three goddesses who start to fight. Jupiter goes, yeah, I'm not getting into this one. And it's Aphrodite, Athena, Aphrodite, Athena, and Juno. Juno says, I'll give you a lot of power. Athena says, I'll give you wisdom. And Aphrodite says, I'll give you the most beautiful woman in the world. Paris went, no contest. Went for the beautiful woman, happened to be Helen of Troy, started the Trojan War, whole bunch of crap went down. But Eris, the goddess of discord, is in his 12th house. So he hears the discord. He's not out-tuned to it, but he also has the Aries rising in the Mars, remember, over in the 7th. So when he hears it, he goes right after it. We have the Eris squaring the node of fate. So that's where people go, but I thought you were. And he goes, no, I didn't. Remember, the South Node answers to that moon in Aquarius. There's a biquintile. So his moon in Aquarius, biquintile is the South Node. Biquintiles are fifth harmonics. Well, it's 144 degrees. And it is the thing you learned how to do in your last life that you don't do anymore, or you can do really easily in this life. You know how to play the piano, you hear a song, you play it. He's got the moon biquintile, the South Node. This guy can smell. And of course, he's got all that Scorpio. Not a good person. All right, you I like. So, and you never fool a Scorpio, even though it's wrapped in a Libra rising, answering to the Venus in Virgo, it all goes into that Scorpio stuff. And that Scorpio stuff's very strong. So we see the moon in a biquintile of the South Node. He's got a little sniffer on him that goes, you, I want to work with you, I'm not so sure. And because his Aries rising, he's just going to say, nah, I don't think so. Next. Okay, so there we go. Who's his real father? Just saying, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Uncle Bernie.
that's true.
And we had that rally in New York with his older sister. Who's his older sister? AOC.
Yeah,
And Bernie's dad.
Yeah.
Or grandpa.
a Libra and a Virgo and
Huh?
a Libra and a Virgo.
Yeah. Well, look, we look at it. So Bernie's got a AA time, right? And there's our Bernie. Whoops, Bernie with Zohran. There he is. So we look at Bernie on the inside. You can see Zohran's Venus Jupiter up there, this famous point on Bernie's midheaven. And of course, Bernie's born on an eclipse in Virgo. The eclipse was at 15 degrees Virgo in September 7th. And Bernie's his dad. I mean, he's got a real father, but Bernie's his political father, we're going to call him. Bernie, and look at that Venus up there. And then you see Zohran's Sun, Mars, Mercury his sun is on Bernie's Venus. Bernie's Venus is on the world point. Who does Bernie appeal to? The kids. When Hillary and Bernie were running, the kids loved Bernie. And I remember hearing him when he was on Air America on Tom Hartman. I'm like, this guy's really good. This guy's really good. And that's Bernie's Venus is on a world point. And Bernie's midheaven is on a world point at 8.5 on Zohran's Venus. So Zohran's like Bernie. And then Bernie has Uranus, Saturn joined in his chart, and Saturn and Uranus are in a sextile, and Bernie's having his Uranus return right now.
Mm-hmm.
So his words are out in the world, and Zohran's his kid. Look at where Zohran's son is, his ascendant is. It's in Bernie's 5th house of children. On Bernie's Mars and Moon. I didn't give birth to you, but I gave birth to you. And Bernie's Mars and Mars is retrograde on the moon, and that's Bernie's appeal to the kids. Also to Zohran, Bernie's Mars is opposite Zohran's sun in Libra. So Zohran's going to come in a little smoother than Bernie, because Bernie's a Virgo and he's going to tell you what he thinks, whether you like it or not. And Bernie's Mercury is in Libra, answering to the Venus in Libra in the rulership. So Bernie doesn't care if you like what he says or he doesn't.
Because he's right.
Because he's right. He's a Virgo. We're always right. And, how many Virgos that go they're wrong? Come on. Anybody? Yeah, we always know we're right. We go, am I wrong? Let me research it.
Yes.
Right? And then we go, all right, technically, when you hear a Virgo say that, they were like, I'm not really wrong. I just found out what the misinterpretation of it was. And so that's all good. That's all good. So we see his midheaven, Zoran's midheaven in Neptune in Bernie's second house. I got values from you that I want to bring to the world. Hit the next one. From Zoran's perspective, here's Bernie. Bernie's in his sixth house. We're gonna talk. Let's talk, right? And you know Bernie when he showed up with those mittens at the inauguration and everybody. He's gonna show up at Zoran's inauguration and wear the mittens. I guarantee it. But they have matching chirons, right? So they have the same, they see the same wound that they share that chiron wound. They see it. Their chirons match. See them?
That
Right?
thing about like they both have this thing where like people can't shine because of economic inequality.
People can't shine because of economic inequality, total. And so when we see that, we go, oh, these guys are soulmates on a very fundamental level because that energy is so strong. And then, of course, Ceres is here on the, he's dad or he's a parent, Bernie's a parent to Zoran. And so we see that energy kind of flowing along. Next. Where was that? When we popped the Leo, so we hit the wrong thing here. We're good. Hang on this. No, leave it on that. Back. Okay. So then we look at Bernie's stuff behind the scenes on helping him navigate stuff. And again, Zoran's got a pretty good smeller about who I should work with and who I shouldn't. And we also see Bernie's ascendant on his series. So a lot of the policies that Bernie's been talking about for years, Zoran wants to create Ceres and Scorpio. Now we'll see how he does. The people have to support him. There's a lot of steps to go, but we see the origin story here. And we see the opportunity in terms of direction and where we're going. And of course, Bernie's Jupiter trines Zoran's sun. So I would imagine he's got Zoran, they're on speed dial with each other. Next. Here's his big sister, AOC. And of course, this time was from Arthur, who was part of he called in and got, when she first showed up, he called her office and they said, yeah, 11:50 in the morning. He came in, I have the birthday of AOC. And we looked at her chart. Okay, so this is AOC, born, 2 years before Zoran. So she's his older sister. So look at her third house. There's little Aries is down there, the Pallas Athena moon, right? AOC's chart, of course, has planets on the world point and is a bit, got Pluto on the world point, very controversial woman in, some areas. She also has, she's a Mars Sun conjunction with Juno. This woman is an honorary Aries with those planets, with that Sun. Mars is by placement by the 10th by exaltation. It's an exaltation house. And notice her Mercury in Libra, which is all that redefining of social media, and her Uranus squaring the Mercury. So she's always good for a pithy remark. She also was born on the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Capricorn. We're having another Saturn conjunction, Neptune conjunction in the third house of her younger brother, right? In the third house of her communication. So her younger brother, because we're going to say she's Bernie's kid too, because they're running around this country doing the oligarchy thing. Next. Here she is on the inside and Zoran's on the outside. So you see they're born 4 days apart by a couple of years. And they both are Mars Sun people. Again, warrior class. When you see Mars Sun, they're an honorary Aries. Just, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just that conjunction is strong. Again, they're separated by 2 years. They both have Pluto in Scorpio, which are the group of babies that are very clear things need to change. His moon is on her north node, which is a nice placement. It's not as tight as the chart with Bernie, which is okay, but she's down there in the fourth house, kind of his mother, essentially. Now, when I went through astrology, John Marcosella was my astrological dad, and Eileen McCabe was my astrological mother. So she's down, he's down there in the mother house, like you're my mother. She's not, but there's a mother sibling. You can see her moon is in the third house of her siblings, which is educating him and helping him. And then you see the nodal connection. Her south node is on, or his south node rather, is on her Jupiter Chiron midpoint. And her north node in Capricorn, which is, she was born her north node is on his moon. His north node is on her Vesta, home and housing. And if you know her story, part of it because of her father's death, she had to go to work to help pay the mortgage. And so there's a whole affordability housing thing in there with her too. So, about affordability and how we live and work. Now, we see the intensity, because she's a Jupiter rising, she's a Sag rising rather. And so we look at that Jupiter in her chart, in that saltation in Cancer. So she's got Jupiter in the 7th exalted in Cancer, which is part of why she's popular too, because of the rising sign. The rising sign of Sag answers to Jupiter. And if you know the United States chart, when she showed up, the US chart has Sag rising. So that's why she's not just known in the Bronx, she's known all across the country. Next. From Zohran's chart's perspective, she's fast life from him. Her moon's in his 12th. And then we see the political belief systems or the structuring of belief systems up there in the 9th house. And we also see in her case, she's there in the 6th house with him, probably again on speed dial talking to him. Because he's going to pick people that he feels comfortable with in terms of direction. Her Chiron's on the south node, so there may be some fallout at some point from him. We don't know, but I'm a little curious about how that Chiron shows up, because Bernie and her have Chiron squares, and she's on Zohran's south node. So she's his astrological big sister or his mom, and we'll go from there with that. So, but I just thought it was kind of interesting because I was like, well, Bernie's his dad, and AOC's his big sister, and yeah, you can see the energy there. So from Zohran's chart's perspective, his older sister, 1, 2, 3, is the 11th house. There she is, that moon in Aquarius, right? On his north node, or her north node on his moon in Aquarius. So she is older sister. Does that make sense to folks? Yeah. Okay, next. All right, so here we're going to look at New York. Why New York? Why is he here? Now, I love New York's chart. Margaret's done a whole bunch of really good work on it. And in the summer, Howard Moore published, if you're a member of NCGR, Howard published a great recap of some of her lectures in the Ingress. So US, think of New York City, right? We are a trading city. Look at our little moon over there in Aries, right? 3rd house is all the local neighborhoods. Look at that Mercury, the Mars and the Venus rather in Sag in the 3rd house. So think about the neighborhoods. Like I live in Little Hungary, up a little further is Germantown. You can go to Chinatown, you can go to Little Korea, you can go to Little Italy, all the neighborhoods that we have. Also, the 3rd house is communication and travel. That's the subways, right? There are all these different subway lines and they all link up and they all go weird. And when you look at the subway map, it's like that is a really wild map. So we see, and that Mars and the Venus are on the galactic center, which is a very super important point in the sky, which right now Saturn's squaring, right? So Saturn's in Pisces in the 6th house, which is the house of the workers of New York, and it's squaring the Mercury, the Venus, and the Mars. It already squared it once. It's going to come back and square it again at the end of February, as Saturn and Neptune go to meet up in the 6th house of 0 Aries. We also see what's the Saturn here in this chart, 7.5 of Sag. Again, Saturn's on a mutable point, which is square to Zohran's Jupiter Mars, or Jupiter Venus rather, where I want to give people housing. And so this is also the neighborhoods. So you go down to like the tenement museum where everybody used to live, or you look at some of the old stuff where you really saw the poverty, but also the migration. 22 cap on the bottom, that's also a world point, 22.5. We were one of the entry points for COVID, because COVID met at 22.5 Capricorn, as did Seattle. So they all came, we got the one from Italy, the one that was in Europe, and the West Coast got the one from China. But that 22.5 where COVID was, we were one of the big hits. And they migrated here, they landed in JFK and brought it around. So I lived near three hospitals, and there were a lot of sirens, and there were those body bag trucks. So we see that Mercury on the world point down there at 22.5, and we see the Saturn on 1.5 on a world point. And again, living in your local neighborhood with your local community, you want a really good salt massage, you go to Koreatown, right near the World Trade, right near the Empire State Building. You know, it's like, okay, I want really good Thai food. Well, where's the good Thai? We had Ethiopian food down in the Ethiopian area. So that's all the networks and the neighborhoods and stuff. And then the Neptune, it's wide, but Neptune's in Gemini. Like I have a dream of what I want to do. And I have a dream that I can follow and go. And we have Jupiter on the ascendant. We are the center of publishing. We are the center of media. We are the center of advertising. We've got a whole communication thing. For many years, we were the head of a lot of world corporations, had buildings here, you know, Colgate Palmolive. And so that Jupiter, but also a lot of people, when they think of the United States, they think of New York City. It's kind of one of those things that it's what we think of when we, you know, they don't really think of Kansas, you know. And so, but also the sprawl of New York, you can see with that third house down there. It does make it a little unmanageable. So that's the only bad part. We're a little unmanageable because there's so many of us and we all live in a little beehive, which of course is, you know, we're like little bees in our hives. And the energy of the sun at 10 Cap is strong. Okay, next. Next, we have New York's progressions. So we ripen over time like a fruit or a tomato. And this was 100 years ago we formed. Now, obviously, we were here before. We were in New Amsterdam, and then the Dutch was unstable. I like it when the internet connection goes unstable. All right, so now we're looking at our progressions. Note the middle wheel is the progressions, the outer wheel is the election, the day of the election, where the planets were. So you can see that progressive moon in Sag, 29, 27, right? Right on that Mercury Mars. When you get sworn in, it'll be exact. And then the moon goes into Capricorn, the very bottom of the sky, and it starts its climb up for the next 30 years. So we're at a turning point when the moon goes to 0 Cap, and in 13 months, moon gets to the sun, we have a new moon. So watch the new moon 13 months from now, which will be December of next year. But more importantly, the moon comes to Venus Mars, which is how are we going to take action? Our progressed sun is over there at 18 Taurus, and it's opposite our progressed midheaven. See the midheaven over here? It feels a little weird to have the midheaven in the second house, but it's 1841. The progressed sun's 1824. Like, and what's that sun's house? It's in the 8th house of money from other people. We also see Mercury retrograde in Taurus. So whenever you see Mercury retrograde, you have a big deal. When we had the elections this year, Mercury was in its retrograde shadow. And it was in Scorpio. It entered its retrograde shadow at 9 Scorpio. So we went, yeah, I think we want a different thing. And then we look at the top, we see the Venus in Gemini is coming up to Pluto over the next few years, but progressed Venus is in Gemini, which is communication and talking. And at the top of the chart, what do we have? We have Jupiter on the south node. We're willing to take a chance. Remember, Jupiter is the planet of gambling. We're willing to gamble on this. Third house. Say mean things to us, we're going to bet higher. You know, it's a lottery ticket chart, right? So Jupiter on that south node, and then we see over here, progressed Jupiter is at 0 Libra. Again, a world point. So that's why we're in the news, partially, but also that's the whole energy of everybody in the world paying attention to us. The nodes of fate have been going through the 6th house of whole house and home for the last 2 years, about to go into the 5th house, which is the house of creativity. Again, the north node going through the 6th house of the workers, and the workers are ruled by Pisces. Now, when you go look, we have very, very poor, we have very, very rich, we have this huge range of housing, but the nodes going through there are kind of like, where do I go? Notice the progressed Mars coming up above the ascendant, right? Now, if you remember in the Revolutionary War, we went, hey, we want to stay with the queen and the king. So when now we're having the Revolutionary War again, and what are we saying? Do we want to stay with the king or queen? We're going to pick a different path. It's always interesting to watch how we switch out. We also notice that the Pluto down there in Aquarius at 0 Aquarius is very strong because it's in the foundation of our country. And Pluto went into Cap a few years back in '08, it went into Cap, but it went into our 4th house, and we started to see a bit of a deterioration in the quality of life in New York. You go back and look at your governors, but Pluto's now in a new sign, Aquarius, and the natal Pluto for New York City is Gemini, which is 2 choices, 2 options, 2 ways of looking at things. But also Pluto and Neptune are talking to each other in the New York chart. So we die and are reborn a lot. You know, Ford said to New York in 1976 when I first moved here, drop dead, New York. And we were like, yeah, later for you, big guy. And, you know, think of your post headlines, right? That's the Pluto Neptune. So now we're like, okay, what's the direction? Notice Progress Series is coming to the North Node. That's going to take a year or 2, but that is, I am interested in, because the nodes go backwards, so they're coming together. That's the children. So the children part's going to take a little while to implement, but it's in the agenda. The housing part down here in the 4th, I want to change the housing structure. Pluto and renovation, new, breaking down the old structures. I want to help the LGBTQs. We're going to go over and look at the Uranus, because we were the land that Stonewall happened. We were the beginning of gay liberation when on the day after, what's her name? The one in Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Judy Garland died. The drag queens down in Stonewall hit the cops because the cops came in to roust him and they started whacking him with the shoes. And suddenly there were riots in Stonewall on June 29th, 1969. And boom. And so you can see the Mercury Mars on that Uranus. Unusual coalitions of people forming and gathering. So it's a very interesting chart in terms of direction and where we're headed and what's happening next. So next chart. So here we have Zohran against New York's chart. Again, he's in now what happens when you elect a person is the person becomes the country, right? So when you have a leader, the leader's chart is shown in the chart we're in. So we look at the guy in Washington, he has Uranus and the Sun on the United States, Mars and Gemini, right? So Uranus is I want to break you up. Sun is I want to chaos, I want to change. Gemini, Uranus and Sun in Gemini on Mars and Gemini in the US chart. Now, when the Masons picked it, they gave us a weak Mars in the 7th, answering to a retrograde Mercury, which we'll see in a second. But so the chart the enemies would talk trash about us, but they wouldn't be able to hurt us. What Donald's done is he's come to the Mars. He woke the Mars up. Now, Lynn Bell did a great lecture on Uranus, and she said, in mythology, Uranus is relentless, relentless, relentless. And Guy is there and he keeps screwing her and giving her babies and then eating the babies. Who's that sound like? And then she goes, I'm done. So she takes Saturn when he gets born and she wraps a rock up and gives it to Uranus. He eats it. And she sends Saturn off to be raised by other people. And Saturn comes back and he cuts off Uranus's balls and he throws them into the ocean.
Oh, right.
Out pops Aphrodite.
Yeah.
Love, beauty, grace. So while we're in this relentless craziness with the Sun Uranus, we have to recognize at some point the balls are going to get cut off and we're going to throw it in the ocean and change it, right? So we want to kind of watch for that, right? That's happening. I'm just saying, possibility. And our energy here is okay. Now what's going on for us? Because Zohran has that really strong Uranus, right? So when we look at New York's chart with him, notice he's down here in the bottom. On the Juno, he's partnered with New York. His moon's in the 5th house of children, of New York's children. And moon's in Aquarius, other people's children. It's also the 4th house of the New York real estate. So he's down there fooling around with the real estate. And then over he does the LGBT people. But we also see his son is here partnering with Juno. Like we want to partner with him. and his Mars is on our Vesta. I want you to change the housing story. Mars, Mercury, Athena on the Vesta. And then we see the Jupiter, Venus on the world point in the 11th, which is pre-K, it's childcare, it's helping the children, opening the libraries. He wants to open the libraries. So that whole energy is very strong. And they are nodal brothers. If they're born with the same nodes, right? So that always helps when you're born with the same nodes. And of course, we talked about Zohran moving to New York, and his north node was on New York's midheaven, right? Yeah, question.
Did you mention about Uranus, balls getting cut off because Ceres is right on the Uranus right here?
Yeah,
And that would be like a sip,
yeah.
wouldn't it? What's your interpretation then of him being able to find things in the coffers, like Ceres would take the grain and and resources within
Right.
Scorpio?
Well, remember Ceres and Pluto had, they were brother and sister, and he took her daughter and incested her. What are we hearing there? Jeffrey Epstein, maybe? What did Uranus say about his daughter? He wanted to have sex with her? He could, there's a very incestuous energy there. Exposing the incest, yeah.
The Uranus of Zoran is at 10 degrees of Capricorn. That's right on the sun of New York City.
He's here to be, remember, we talked initially, he's here to be a change agent.
Yeah.
And Uranus is on the sun, yep. And again, you're gonna get a recording of this, so you can go through it slower, but the sun Uranus is, wow, I see that. I'm here to awaken New York.
It's really, and then
No, I find it interesting, when he gave his acceptance speech.
Mhm.
The first thing he said was, we destroyed a dynasty.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and which is Uranus and Capricorn conjunct the
The sun.
node.
And-
And he emphasized that. And
Yeah.
I haven't really heard many of the speeches when he said that. And then he said, the next thing he said was, and I hope that this is the last time that I say Cuomo's name in public. I mean, listen, wait a minute. No, what is he gonna say next? And he went, no, so I just think that Uranus,
Yeah.
North Node is really something.
It definitely does, and also, I've been writing Cuomo and his brother and saying, move to Florida. Go live near mom, bring your boat down there, because you can do the boating every day of the year, and there's a lot of women down there. Why don't you run for the governor of Florida? So DeSantis is term limited, and there's a lot of New Yorkers that move to Florida, they'll all vote for Cuomo.
Yeah.
So I'm like, go to Florida and make Florida blue. So at any rate, that's my fantasy, but I write it, I said.
He fit in there. He
Yeah,
fit in there.
he would, yeah, totally. So at any rate, so we're looking, and a lot of the older New Yorkers I know voted for Clark, right? They like him, and that's okay. And of course, if he runs against Matt Gaetz, they both have a little sex thing in their background, checks it out. We both have that next, it's not a big deal. All right, so then here it is with Zoran against the, where did we get this one from? This is his election chart. Yeah, keep going. Oh, wait, no, go back to the election, sorry. Okay, so here we see the Juno and the Pluto by transit on a Saturn. So this is the day of the election, when he got elected. We see that Pluto coming to Saturn and Allah going, oh my God, that's horrible. But notice his moon at 15 on the world point in Taurus. Again, we're looking at the world points. We notice Jupiter in his 12th house comes to his ascendant in his Kuala Lumpur chart next July. So we're going to watch when Jupiter hits his first house, because we're going to back to the natal chart, right? And then here we see the node of fate moving through his second house, going to be there for another year till September of next year. So we're going to watch him in this first year, how well he does, because this is his year to kind of pull the punches and get stuff going. The day of the election, Mars was on his progressed sun in Scorpio at 28 Scorpio. He is going to turn into a Sag in a year and 11 months. And then he's going to be answering to that very nice Jupiter on a world point of his. Right now, the sun is in Scorpio, answering to his very strong Mars. So we're going to watch a change in him in about a year and 11 months when that sun shifts into Sag. And the progressed suns are really, planets changing sign by progression is a big deal. Notice his progressed descendant right now is for Virgo, coming in on that Venus moon Jupiter. it will get there before the elections, as the elections are coming in. So he may be an impetus for other baby Bernies to happen, because Bernie and AOC have been going around the country going, run for office, in part of their oligarchy speech. And you can see Juno there on Saturn, progress Juno partnering, so him partnering well. Next. Then here we have him relocated to New York. And again, we see Eris, all the arguing on with him. But also we see that seventh house, Venus above the horizon, Venus on his, and of course they were calling the election for him. They didn't even count my vote yet. I did mail in. And so they were like, yeah, we're good. So that energy very strong in the seventh house. Again, the sun gets into the eighth house in a year and 11 months. So that's when he's going to be able to get the taxes, because that's getting the money from other people. But he's got to get through the next election, really, with Hochul running. She didn't implement congestion pricing until after the election. She isn't integrating any tax cuts until after the election. And if Stefanik wins, we're in trouble. But I don't know that she will. So Hochul's probably not going to do taxes for 2 years. So anything that requires taxes, he's got a little bit of a wait for. Next. Okay, so this is him. We can just skip this because this is him with New York and stuff. All right, next up, the USA chart, January 4th, 1770, July 4th, rather, 1776, 510. It's a Sag rising chart. See, that's why AOC is so big, because she's a Sag rising. And then we look at the chart and we go, okay, look at his moon down there in the third house. He's got that Aquarius moon, so does the US. That's freedom of speech. That's saying whatever we want to say. And so that fourth estate, third house is the house of writing and publishing and printing. So that's why the fourth estate, freedom of the press, was ensconced in the First Amendment and also in the Constitution. And also it's under a little siege right now because Saturn is quincunx that moon in Aquarius. So you say things I don't like, I'm going to sue you. So when we look at New York's chart, we see the Saturn and the Juno at the top. Saturn's exalted in Libra, it's in its favorite house. We see all the planets in the seventh. Remember, this is an elected chart. The Masons were astrologers. A lot of the founding fathers were Masons, so they picked it. And if you look at the Masonic Creed, which is do nice to other people, be an example for others, take care of people, no cheating, no lying, no stealing. There's a whole group of creed that they have. I have an article on my website about why the Masons picked it, including the creed, which I don't remember right now. I should have pulled it. But at any rate, you can see all those Cancer planets. So we're going to give you stuff. Jupiter in the seventh. We are having our Jupiter return in Cancer. So we're all aware of, are you giving me stuff or are you holding it back? And Jupiter just stationed on that Mercury retrograde in Cancer, like literally 2 days ago, right? So the Mercury retrograde also rules the Mars in Gemini. Now, Donald's stuff is right on that Gemini sun, but we're going to give you stuff, and you may talk trash about us, Mercury in weak, answering to Moon in Aquarius. You can say whatever you want about us, but we're going to give you stuff. You're not going to be strong. What's happening now with his sun and Uranus on that Mars is stimulating it. But we look at the chart when they founded it, and they were like, this is the vision. And notice Uranus is 8 in the Revolutionary War, the Declaration chart, because it took them a little while to get it organized, to get all those guys down to Philadelphia. It wasn't like just as Uranus went into Gemini, it took a little time of getting it in. And then we see the focus on the chart of being, kind to others and communication. Now, remember, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were not discovered until after the founding of the country. There were only the big 7. None of the asteroids were there. So Pluto in the second, when we had our Pluto return, we are going to have Pluto hit 6. That's in the south node in the money house, right? So again, we're looking at economic stuff. So be conscious of your economies as we're going forward. And then we look at this chart. Now we're going to put Zohran against it. Why everybody got so excited. So here's the election chart. So we're going to get excited on the day of the election, just because we have elections on Mars's day. Notice the Jupiter there on the progress north node in the 8th house and on the Mercury. So we're asking for a change in direction. We also notice the progress Jupiter on the sun, right? Which is very much about how are we going to shift energies. Uranus now in Gemini in the 6th house of the people changing, people asking for a change. It was in Taurus the last 8 years. Uranus in Taurus is considered its detriment because it doesn't fly. And when Uranus went into Taurus a couple days ago, the planes all landed. So Uranus, we haven't been flying for the last 8 years. Of course, we had COVID, we had a whole bunch of stuff happen. But we also see down at the bottom, we just had what's called our progressed new moon. Our progressed sun's in Pisces, and the moon is in Aries, progressive moon's in Aries. So we had a progressive new moon 13 and 9 months ago. And that new moon in Pisces was, how are we doing? We've had Saturn on that, so that's made us depressed. That's also why everybody's so depressed and feels overwhelmed and cries and feels really horrible. Like, I don't know where. I mean, it's very lucrative to be an astrologer now, you know, because you just say to them, and they go, yeah, and they start crying and the reading's over. Got ka-ching, ka-ching. I mean, not to be mean, but I just like, I can't do anything. I can tell you when it's over. You know, that's all I can do is tell you, and I can tell you, you're gonna have a vision, but not right now. Right now, we're at the swamp.
And when is it over?
Not when it's over. No, once those planets get into fire and air, good. So
Wait, why is everyone depressed again? Because Uranus is in Pisces or?
well, yeah, because Neptune and Saturn are in the 3rd house of our mind, and they're on our progressed sun in Pisces.
They're on, so Neptune and Uranus are in the 3rd house in.
Neptune and Saturn are in the 3rd.
Neptune,
Of
Saturn,
the
okay.
depression of the people, right?
How many more slides do you have?
Huh?
How many more slides?
Almost done.
Okay.
And then we have Pluto on the midheaven when the election happened, right? On the progressed midheaven for the election running or for the regular midheaven. And then we also have Venus up there in 27 Libra. And remember what Mamdani's Venus was, right? Or his descendant was 27 Libra. Next. Here we go. Here's him with US. So why is everybody so crazy about him here? Notice the Mercury, Mars, Athena, Pluto. That's the public, that's the social media, that's Congress, that's we're going to take your citizenship away. It's all the crazy stuff that we're seeing in the 11th house. He's got the South Node on the sun. So, and the North Node on the US sun. So that's where people have been getting a little wild and crazy about him. And of course, the sun rules the 9th house and the 8th house. You're an immigrant. We're going to take away your stuff. We're going to denaturalize you, whatever. They actually said it to Sank the other day, the guy on the Young Turks. And then, what's her name? Miller's wife said, you better hope, like Ilhan Omar's citizenship. And I'm like, are they going after her citizenship too? I mean, these people are crazy. But if they said it and I went, I'm going to watch for that. So she said, we're going to go after your citizenship. And I'm like, and he was going to like, come and get me, baby. But then he's like, Ilhan Omar. And I'm like, wow. It was on Piers Morgan. So anyway, that Saturn, you know, that he has over there is on the Pluto South Node. It's right there in that middle part where we're pushing. And that's where Pluto is now in our chart in the world. So we also see where the Eris is on the Chiron in his chart, or, you know, so that's the angry words. And we also see he's an Aries. I did the New York chart for here in the United States. He's an Aries. He's speaking what he thinks he needs to say, and he's talking to the sun, you know, and saying, this is what my vision is. And the US sun is having the South Node on it from him and from everybody. So that energy, swap the charts again. One more, yeah, okay. And so this is New York City incorporated with Zohran's chart. Next, we'll skip this one. This is too busy, but you can study it.
No, that's it.
That's it. Next,
So I have a,
okay, to go back to New York, go back to New York, United States with Zohran, because I spec through that one. Yeah,
so I saw that his Chiron is conjunct the United States North Node. So could he be here now to
Heal?
teach? Yeah, like a wounded healer to lead the way.
Yeah. And that's where Bernie's Chiron is too. Right?
Ah,
50 years later
yes,
between them,
that's
right?
true. Yeah.
So
that's
Bernie's
so
like, you
cool.
know, and he did very well when he was running against Hillary, and he would not quit. And he's like, no, I'm going to bring my, and now he's doing his oligarchy tour, and he pulled like 10,000 people in Montana, Heather said. She and her partner went to it. So there's a nice energy here of, yes, healing the wounds. Yeah, and initiating, remember when Chiron's in Leo, it says, I want you to be the king. I want you to be the king of your own castle. I want you to be able to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the Declaration of Independence. I want you to be able to have that.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody take it away from you. And the way you have that is freedom of speech. And you have the Bill of Rights. And you have your opportunities to say, yes, this is what I want to have happen. And so that energy is very, very strong. So when we look at it, so other questions? Yep.
Can you talk a little bit more about the world point and how, like, if like a important, like a sun or a rising sign is on the world point, do you find that those people tend to be more in the public eye?
Yes, and they're famous and they're known, yes. For whatever the planet is. So it can be a bad planet too that they're known for. So like Nancy Kerrigan was known well, and then Tanya Harding, when she whacked her knees, she had a transiting world point, and then when she was in the news with Margot Robbie doing her movie, whacked the knees, she was again on a world point.
So is it typically by transit that what activates the world point?
Aggressions, if you have it natally, it's just, if you have it in your chart, like Colin Powell died, they published the time of death, and there was no birth time for him, so I pulled the time of death, and I pulled his chart, and I reckoned, and in every planet, all the angles were on the world point. I'm like, of course, he's Colin Powell, the whole world knows who he is, right? He was the Secretary of Defense, he ran things, he went to the UN and said, go invade Iraq. But that whole energy, so world points can be in the natal chart, you can be known and famous for them, and then you can have them by midpoints too. So you can have a midpoint on a world point.
What does that mean?
The combination of the energy, what's around his.
Okay.
He's got the Jupiter Venus on the midpoint.
Okay.
Right. And so when you have a planet on a midpoint, you're going to be known or famous for it, whatever it is. And it can be good or bad. But it also, and Nancy Kerrigan, she still announces for sports, for skating. But Tanya came in and whacked her knees and was gone, and then came back again when Margot Robbie and whacked her knees again and was gone. And so they have, as Andy Warhol's comment, everybody's famous for 15. Because
So
at some point you may
midpoint
have
being
a
either 7 or 19.
Huh?
Midpoint being either 7 or 19.
No, the midpoint, the degrees of the world points are 0 of the cardinal, 22 and a half of the cardinal, 15 of the fixed, and 7 and a half of the mutable.
Got it.
1 degree on either side. So 29, if you have stuff at 29 Pisces like New York does with the Aries planets and Sag, 29 Sag, that's why we're famous around the world. Everybody knows New York, right? It's recognized as the United States, even though there's the whole rest of the country. But also, we were the initiating of New York. We were the initiating part of it. So you look at world points, and then if you have midpoints on world points, those degrees, those planets are going to be, those planets, when they get transited, will be activated, and you'll publish your book, or you'll write your play, or you'll do whatever. Whatever the big thing is that you're supposed to do, that's going to make you famous or known.
And guess who has several planets on the world point?
You.
This guy.
So famous.
Is Danny famous?
He's famous in New York.
Cool. So any other questions? We're at our time. It goes really fast. You're gonna get a copy of the slides so you can study them.
7.
You're gonna,
Yeah,
and all the
because it's
charts
half,
are double A,
right?
so they're good.
Yeah.
Email.
This is like 0
I'm
halfway
getting,
to 15.
I'm
This
getting
is
less
the
RSVPs on Meetup, which
and
I'm
then
not.
halfway is 7, and on the other
upset
side, halfway
about,
is
but
22 and a half, and you get back to 0.
The only thing is, if
Everybody quiet for a
you
second.
don't RSVP yes on Meetup, then I can't email you the recording and slides afterwards. So just be cognizant of that, like not trying to throw shade in them, but just like sometimes after the meetup, I get like emails being like, oh, I didn't get the slides, and then I send it to you, but I'm like, if you just RSVP on Meetup, then that makes it a little bit easier.
Can we do that now, or is it too late?
What?
We
It's
are.
okay, just for the future, but it's not a biggie. Thank you, Anne. Was
Welcome.
that great?
Slide, but I had an hour and a half, so, we just powered through.
Take it on the screen, that would be great.
Good, yeah, like, you got the plaque right over there. I know. Let's speak that. It's like.
The New York chart, I'll
Okay,
send it to you.
The whole chart.
And
Thanks, Judy. Put them on all.
Just gonna,
I didn't see type.
yeah.
She's right for me.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. This made me want to go for like yeah, I did shower at first, and at the time, yeah, I was absolutely. I wasn't even like a fragment of the, well, I didn't have a fragment of the knowledge of it now. So I was just kind of like, got it. Like, oh my gosh. No, like she, I